What happened here October 11, 1889? This is New York City Hall Park at the southwest corner of Center and Chambers Streets, where on October 11, 1889, behind City Hall, the lineman for Western Union, John Feeks, was removing dead electrical wires from a 50-foot telegraph pole when he slipped, hit his head on the pole's cross arm, then reached out to the wire to catch his fall. Because he was not wearing his protective rubber gloves, his fingers sliced off. He continued his fall, becoming tangled face down in several other live wires, including some that cut and burned deeply into his cheek and neck, nearly decapitating him. Witnesses on the street below and neighboring buildings watched as his blood spilled 40 feet below. Hundreds of people gathered below as he caught fire and burned for nearly an hour before his body was removed by the fire department. Feeks had been publicly electrocuted to death in one of the busiest intersections of the second largest city on Earth. It occurred behind City Hall and within sight of Newspaper Row, which was a series of buildings that housed the largest New York newspapers at the time. Construction had started on the World Building that month. Other buildings were the Sun Building, the Tribune, the Times Building, and the Potter Building, whose tenants were several newspapers, including the New York Observer. Feeks' public death was widely reported around the world, as it happened in the middle of the current wars, involving Thomas Edison, George Westinghouse, and Nikola Tesla. Inventor Thomas Edison used the incident as propaganda to promote his company's use of direct current electricity as the safer alternative to the newer, more powerful arc current or alternating current system that killed John Feeks. The alternating current motor was invented by Edison's former employee Nikola Tesla. Tesla believed the AC system he was developing would be of more benefit for power distribution than Edison's power system, direct current. Edison disagreed. Tesla soon stopped working for Edison and sold his AC distribution patents to George Westinghouse. Westinghouse began building power plants and installed his high-voltage AC power lines above ground. Thomas Edison was already famous by the time of Feeks' electrocution for his many innovations and inventions, including the phonograph, the movie camera, and his improvement to the light bulb with his help of his Menlo Park lab assistant, Louis Latimer. His innovation to electric lighting, the incandescent bulb, made it possible for less than wealthy people to use light bulbs in their homes. In 1878, Thomas Edison created the Edison Electric Light Company to distribute power to these homes with underground wires using direct current, which delivered an even flow of power in one direction. He built the first power station at 257 Pearl Street, New York City, reaching over 500 homes in the first year. However, because direct current has a limited travel distance, the homes would need to be within a mile of the power station. These power stations burned coal to produce steam that would in turn spin the generators to send the power to each of the bulbs. This system created a need for coal power plants all over the city. George Westinghouse, however, had found that alternating current had properties that direct current could not provide. Westinghouse developed AC power generation by installing transformers so the AC power could be stepped up, which allowed it to be transmitted over long distances. In 1886, George Westinghouse created the Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company to deliver electricity to homes much cheaper and further from its generating station than direct current. It was capable of lighting homes for several miles on its way to the city, where the AC power could be stepped down to light Edison's 100-watt bulbs. So the War of the Currents began. AC power was an obvious threat to Edison financially, so he used the John Feeks electrocution to persuade the public that his more expensive direct current was safer because of the lower voltage and that his power lines were buried underground. He also suggested the AC lines Westinghouse was installing were cheaper because Westinghouse was cutting corners on safety. But it was possibly Thomas Edison's shrewd business tactics that led to John Feeks' death. Several years earlier, in 1884, New York City mandated that power lines be buried underground. Westinghouse attempted to bury his power lines, but some sources say Thomas Edison used his political friends to disallow Westinghouse from burying his lines, forcing Westinghouse to install his high-power AC lines exposed above ground. There were many reports of death and serious injury as the lines fell in storms, such as the New York blizzard of 1888, or during regular maintenance and repairs, such as the work being performed by John Feeks on October 11, 1889. The War of the Currents even had an application where the two companies hoped not to have their standard used. In the summer of 1888, the New York State Legislature adopted the electric chair for its method of execution to replace hanging, as hanging was ruled cruel punishment since it could take up to 30 minutes for a person to strangle to death if their neck did not break in the fall. The dilemma now being, which current would be best to kill humans humanely, or in this case, quickly. Neither Edison nor Westinghouse wished for their systems to deliver the electricity, as it would be bad for public opinion, and subsequently their businesses, to be chosen as the most effective way of killing humans, even if it was to execute murderers. It was perceived that whichever current brought the quickest death was the most dangerous. Harold Brown, an activist electrician, was known to promote the safety of DC power over AC power by his public electrocution of dogs. However, he started promoting AC power in public demonstrations with news reporters as the best choice for the electric chair, claiming alternating current as the most humane way to kill humans because even at a lower voltage, it would kill instantly, whereas the lower voltage of DC power would certainly hurt, but needed much more power to kill. He electrocuted a horse and several calves in front of the reporters. Westinghouse made attempts to defend alternating current and accused Brown of manipulating the public by first damaging the animals with DC power and only needing less power to kill the animals with AC current as the animals were nearly dead already. Westinghouse also accused Edison of working with Brown. Brown not only denied his ties to Edison, but challenged Westinghouse to a duel of currents by delivering increasing amounts of their promoted current on each other until one gave up. Westinghouse declined. In August 1889, a break-in at Harold Brown's office produced documents that indicated Edison had secretly commissioned Brown to hold the demonstrations of the horse and calf electrocutions, which were effective in persuading the public to the dangers of arc current, or AC, but not well received in its destruction of the animals. Both Brown's and Edison's reputations suffered. However, 2 months later would be the public electrocution of John Feeks by AC wires behind New York City Hall at the corner of Chamber and Center Streets, and AC would appear to be the most feared of the two systems. Edison thought he claimed another victory of sorts when on August 6, 1890, William Kimmler was the first person executed by electricity after the New York State Legislature chose alternating current for the electric chair. A charge of 700 volts was expected to kill Kimmler instantly. It did not. Another charge of 1030 volts for 2 minutes was needed to complete the execution of William Kimmler. The botched execution ended up further damaging Edison's reputation since he championed AC power as the humane method to kill. Though DC power did appear to be safer, the distance advantages of alternating current and ability to power industry became more apparent. After having invested almost all of his fortune into Thomas Edison's company, Edison's first customer and largest investor, J.P. Morgan, switched his allegiance to AC power. Then in 1893, George Westinghouse underbid J.P. Morgan for the electricity contract at the Chicago World's Fair. 2 years later, in August 1895, Westinghouse's alternating current system was adopted for the first alternating current hydroelectric power station at Niagara Falls, New York, funded in part by J.P. Morgan. The transformers were capable of transmitting 11,000 volts, and in 1896, nearby Buffalo, New York, was joined to the power grid. AC power soon became the world standard, ending the War of the Currents. However, Edison's direct current system continues to have important applications today, and efforts to lower the cost of transmitting to distances equal to AC power are ongoing. DC power is used in most batteries as its properties are ideal for powering smartphones, quick-charging electric cars, and solar charging batteries. Today, even though the surrounding city streets are much the same as in 1889, the skyline of New York City is ever-changing. There are only a few buildings remaining near the southwest corner of Center and Chamber Streets, and no visible indicator of the tragedy that took John Feeks' life on October 11, 1889. If you like this episode of What Happened Here, please hit the thumbs up button, the subscribe button, and the share button to tell your friends and family who also like short documentaries.